Hey guys, Ben Paints here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we've headed up to Teamsport Birmingham with a couple of the other guys from the Bristol track. So we come up today with Alfie, who's on our right, Harley in front of me, and Harrison, who's down at the front of the grid. Now I'm going to let the first lap get underway because we all got caught napping, and I also want to show you the absolute carnage that ensued. So off the start line we qualified in 9th, and immediately we got up to 8th and then got rammed through there by Alfie up into 7th place, so able to gain 2 positions straight away. And you might be wondering, why are we doing a race on a Monday night? And I'll get to that in a second. But here once again, diving down the inside of one of the other drivers and unfortunately getting stuck on the driver in front of them. You can see all sorts of carnage ensued, and we sort of kept the position that we were in rather than gaining 2 positions that I was sort of going for. I looked for the middle of the track here to try and cover it off, but instead Harley had other ideas and went right down the inside there and managed to take the position off me, and consequently that led me to lose the positions that I had made. So I was back down in 9th position where I started. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you might be wondering why we are doing a race on a Monday night, and this was actually at the discrepancy of the people hosting the evening. And as we come into the bottom hairpin here, the back of the car did just sort of slide on a wet patch on the ground. You can see another driver on the left hand side who spun out, so this caused yellow flags. But as I was saying, the layout for this evening consisted of a 10-minute qualifying session followed by a 35 straight race, which is what you're watching now. And unfortunately for myself, in qualifying I did have a little bit of a dog car, and that caused me to qualify in 9th. I thought I had a little bit more pace compared to some of the others on the night, but instead I found myself just being a little bit stuck. Now, the one catch with this race was, instead of driving as individuals, we were actually paired up into teams of 2. So on this occasion, Alfie, who was the driver in front of me, was actually my teammate, and consequently in each team only one driver had to do a drive-through pit stop. So in my team we decided that it would be whoever had the faster lap time in qualifying. Now Alfie beat me by about 1/10 of a second, and therefore I decided to let him do the pit stop and just leave me to try and gain as many positions as I possibly can to pick up points. So unfortunately there, as you saw, we did have Alfie having a little bit of a moment going into the bottom hairpin. Did get a pretty poor run up the ramp, and this led to me actually going into the back of him and actually losing a position to one of the other drivers that was behind me. So then once again we're back down where we started, back down in P9. So we haven't actually gained anything yet, haven't lost anything either, but in my head it did feel like I was leaking positions all over the place due to the fact that I hadn't actually, every time I'd gone forward I sort of managed to fall back again. So I was a little bit downbeat about that, but we were just willing to try and get our heads down and try and put in the best lap times that we possibly can. Now I would just like to say, if you are enjoying the video, could you please hit the like button down below, as it really does help me out. And if you are new here, or if you haven't already, could you also hit the subscribe button, as it really does mean the world to me. And I'm ecstatic that we've now reached over 200 subscribers on the channel. But getting back into the footage, we're coming round the last corner here to get down on the main straight, and I did fancy myself here. I did have a little bit of overspeed. I go for a really diabolical move down the inside into the first corner there, sort of forcing the driver ahead of me offline, but instead of sort of slowing down and letting him back through, I thought I saw Alfie and Harley ahead of me sort of driving away, and I really wanted to try and catch up with them if I can. So I was more willing just to take the penalty if I was going to get one, but luckily for myself I didn't. So that move was legal, even though I would question it myself. So we do actually just carry on into the race here, trying to follow along behind Alfie. I knew I had a bit more pace than him, and also Harley up ahead, so I was just trying to get as clean lap times in as I possibly can and just close the gap as much as I can, because I did lose a lot of time by making a few mistakes and also being overtaken by the driver behind. And luckily for myself, you can see Harley here up ahead in 5th position. I don't think we realised what positions we were in at this point, obviously due to pit stops and yellow flags, but Harley was actually being held up by the person in 4th position. So we currently discussed this after. We thought that we were actually racing in about 8th or 9th later in the video, which you will see, but instead we were actually racing right at the front of the pack, which I was really happy with. We had really solid pace, and we were actually some of the fastest people on the evening as well. So following on from that, you can see how much time we've actually gained on Alfie up ahead. I was really just trying to get my head down and try and put in some really quick laps. So our fastest lap so far, 46.975, which is a little bit off the pace, but not too far for the evening we're taking part in. So once again, we come across the line on this lap and we do improve with a 46.397, which is a drastic improvement on our previous lap so far. And this is just obviously justified to the amount I've actually managed to catch up to Alfie ahead of me. Now I knew that I had a little bit more pace than Alfie here, and I didn't really want to go barreling past him and cause any incidents, so I was just trying to think how I could get past in the most safe and clean way, obviously due to us being on the same team. And here I got an excellent run out of the bottom hairpin there and actually was able to sort of squeeze my way past, maybe a little bit too little room given, but we didn't compromise each other too much. We were able to just swap positions there from having a far better run over Alfie. So my sights were now set on Harley up ahead in 5th position, who was sort of our main rival for this race, because obviously we've only actually been up here once before and this was his first time here. So we do skip forward in this one as it was a long race, and we were able to actually have a little bit of a yellow flag moment here. So instead of actually just holding back, we were able to sort of close the gap there just before the yellow flags, and this meant that we were able to really tag along to the back of the small group ahead of us. So in front of us is actually, at this point we didn't realise, but that was 3rd position just dipping into the pits there. So we were actually now up into 3rd, 4th and 5th. So this was actually a battle for a podium position that we didn't actually realise at the time. We thought we were further down, as I mentioned earlier. So with not knowing what was really at stake, we were trying to get underway here under the yellows, and the green does come on now as we enter the ramp. So me and Harley get a really good run. I look for a little move down the inside of Harley, but he instead goes for a big lunge on the person in 3rd and makes it stick. I give him a little bump through to give him a little bit of extra space, and then I actually managed to follow him through as well. So now we're both able to make an overtake on the person in 3rd, and we're up into 3rd and 4th respectively, which we're really happy with. And now it was just time to try and put in as many laps as we could and try and break away. Now I do skip forward again here due to there being some water on the track, which caused a red flag for about 6 minutes, and I know you don't really want to see that footage. So instead we're tagging along behind Harley here as the greens go underway once again in sort of the same place as earlier, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get as good a run as I did on the previous time round the track. So instead we're just tagging along behind Harley here and just trying to stay as close to him as we possibly can, going a little bit too hot there and actually giving him a little bit of a nudge out of the corner, which obviously gives him a little bit more speed. And I really just wanted to try and stay as close to him as I possibly could, try not to make any mistakes and just try and think about how I could try and make a move later into the race. I didn't want to try and make an early dive on him and then have to defend myself, so I was just trying to sit behind him at this point, try and keep up with him and just see if there were any mistakes he was making. Now what you will find as we go through the rest of the video is that one lap I'd make a mistake and I'd lose a bit of time, then one lap Harley would make a mistake and I'd close the time back up. So it was actually a really good battle, and you can see evidence of that just there. I actually lost quite a lot of time going into the ramp because I did get the back end of the car out a little bit too much, and that caused my momentum to be lost. So here once again I was able to catch up quite a bit through the hairpins. I was really enjoying the hairpins on this track this time out. I really found there was a lot of grip in the car that I was using. I was able to get a nice bit of mid-corner speed. So we come across the line on this lap, a little bit slower than our fastest lap so far, 46.6 second lap, and still not as quick as we want to be. We want to be down in the 45 second lap times ideally. And here you can see once again just not having as good an exit out of that long corner before the big long straight, and it did mean that Harley was able to gain at least 2 or 3 car lengths on me up ahead. So I didn't really want him to just start running away with it. I didn't want him to lose me in his rear mirror. So instead you can see I was still putting him under pressure. He was trying to push it a little bit too hard to get away from me, I think, and this caused him to just lose a bit of time, which I was able to gain back compared to what I lost going into the long straight round the back of the track. So once again just trying to stay as tight and stable as I possibly can, and we come across the line on this lap with a 46.594. We do jump ahead once again just due to being sat behind it in the same sort of position and same sort of distance. You can see our fastest lap so far is a 45.910 second lap, and we are only 1/10 off it with our last lap there. But up ahead, to my joy, was actually Alfie, who was actually my teammate, and after he'd done his pit stop we actually were coming up to lap him. So you can see Harley looking over his shoulder quite a lot, trying to be a bit more defensive, because he knew at this point that we were on the same team, and he knew that some team tactics were going to come out to play, and I was really begging it in my helmet at this point for Alfie to hold Harley up, give me an opportunity to make an overtake, and we will see if that actually happens later in the race. But you can see here we are really closing up to Alfie up ahead, and I can see that Harley is under a bit of pressure for myself now, really able to tag along behind him. You can see his discomfort in the kart here, and again going a little bit wide, and I was able to get a good run out of the last corner going into the first corner. And we come across the line there only 5 thousandths off our fastest lap so far, 45.915. So we've really got some decent pace now at this point, getting some really good lines of momentum onto the back exit here. I'm really keeping up with Harley, trying to put him under a bit of pressure, try and show him my car on both sides of him as he looked back, just to try and put him under a bit more pressure, try and make him a little bit nervous. I saw a little bit of an open here, I went for a little overtake, but unfortunately you can see there I did actually make a bit of contact, which wasn't really moral, so unfortunately it did also ruin my momentum coming up the ramp. And at this point I thought that was it, Harley was going to race off into the distance, but I do think he did actually slow down a little bit to continue the battle, which I was really appreciative with. And you can see there we're able to be back in the sort of range we have been for the whole race really. And obviously due to that collision we actually come across a line here of 47.438 second lap, so you can see how much time you lose on that ramp just by making the smallest bit of contact. We've actually lost 1.5 seconds off our fastest lap, which I think is completely ridiculous, but it does show how much time you can lose just from having a little bit of a collision. So once again, just trying to gain back the time we've lost and try and put Harley under a bit more pressure. I didn't want him to gain a little bit more confidence as he saw the gap opening up, and you can see once again really gaining a lot of time through the bottom hairpin, saying thank you to the back marker who let us get past quite cleanly there and allowed us to continue our race. And again he completely misses the apex there up ahead, and this really means that we can keep up with him going down into the last corner, and the gap is closing bit by bit as we are also closing up to Alfie up ahead. We come across the line on this lap with our fastest lap of the race, so a 45.776 second lap was our fastest lap of the race, and unfortunately we were unable to beat that once again. So we do jump forward once more here as we really are closing up to Alfie at this point, and I knew that Harley either had to try and make a move or just sit behind Alfie and defend against me, and I don't think he really wanted to do that with me breathing all down his neck. You can see the lap times are slowing down from Harley taking some more defensive lines, but you can see how much we managed to close up to Alfie here, and I was really willing in my head for him to just slow down, just slow Harley up a little bit, give me an opportunity to try and nip down the inside on one of the corners. We come into the bottom hairpin here, and you can see how much time I'm actually able to gain through the mid corner, and then unfortunately up the ramp, obviously due to being a little bit heavier, we do not carry as much momentum as the other two, but we're able to actually keep up going into the top section here, really swinging our car into the first hairpin, almost making contact with Harley. We're able to get such a good run, but on the exit we did lose a little bit. We come down now to come across the start finish straight. You can see Alfie sort of still holding up Harley ahead, still managing to allow me to catch up as much as I can here. So you can see just trying to take a really tight line to the right hand side to then really open the steering up on the left hand sweeping corner, because I feel like the more you turn the wheel, the more likely the back end of the kart is going to slide out, and it's just going to cause you to lose all your momentum going down the long straight, and it's a really important corner to get right. You can see once again we're almost touching each other now in this train. We're really bumper to bumper as we come into the top section coming up the ramp, and again just trying to stay as tight as possible to the apexes in order to allow me to gain any opportunity I can to force an overtake. You see Harley really under pressure here in the middle of the Alfie and Ben sandwich, and I think he was trying to go for a little move on Alfie here. Alfie taking a bit of a defensive line, switching back to the racing line just to throw Harley off. Harley tries to go around the outside, and unfortunately for him this is sort of where his demise came, as I was able to nip down the inside there and follow Alfie through, and that allowed me up into P3, which I was really happy with. And now I was just trying to find a way to get past Alfie as smooth as possible without allowing Harley to sort of follow me through. So here I was just sticking behind Alfie here, just trying to stay as close as possible without actually hitting him, but instead Harley hits me, and that caused him to lose all his momentum going up the ramp, and actually that allowed me a little bit of breathing room to try and catch back up to Alfie here and try and make a pass without Harley just nipping through. So Alfie at this point looking over his shoulder, you can see that I'm behind him, and using a bit of team tactics here, he just did slow down a little bit going into the first corner, and then this allowed me to really close up and go past on the right hand side. He allows me to go past there, and I believe I was able to just sneak through and try and escape at this point. Now I did know that Harley had quite a lot of pace about him, so I was just really willing to try and put in a really good lap, the best one I possibly could, just to try and break away, make a bit of a gap, and just sort of mitigate the pressure on myself, not allow Harley to sort of get back in my airspace and have to drive some more defensive lines, causing me to slow down. So here you can see really trying to maximise the track here, using every little bit of getting as close to the apex as I can, close to the tyre walls, really trying to be as late on the brakes as I can and really rotate the car around each of the corners. And again, trying to take a little bit of a smoother and slow line going into the last corner, just because I found that I was porpoising a little bit around that corner, and obviously when that happens you do in fact lose a lot of time. Now we do skip ahead here. Unfortunately Harley was unable to actually catch up to us, so instead we were just sort of hot lapping round. I didn't really want to show you guys that, so this is in fact the last lap of the race. We are in third, and up ahead you can see just as a little blur in the distance was Jay, who goes to Birmingham quite a lot, so the fact we were actually closing up on him was really good in my opinion as well. I do think he had a little bit of a slower kart though, so I'll take it with a bit of a pinch of salt, but it did give me a lot of confidence. So just really trying to get the best lap we possibly can on the last lap. You can see our last lap was actually equal to one of our laps from earlier, 45.915, and this lap was, we were trying to come around and beat that and try and set our fastest lap, but unfortunately, as you know, as the checker flag on the right hand side, we didn't quite beat our fastest lap. So this does in fact bring us to the end of the video as we come across the start finish line here. So I would like to say, if you have watched this far, thank you very much, and if you have enjoyed the video, could you please hit the like button down below and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, as we have a lot of events coming up, including the first round of the SRK Championship, which I'm really excited to bring to you all. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.